Alright, we are checking out the Officer Tatum once again. They don't want you to know this about Gaza and Israel. And so it looks like he went to the Army's House podcast, which I've seen before. And so let's see what they are talking about. I'm pretty sure most of this information will be um, not new to me, but if you're a pro pally, then this might be interesting or revealing information that you haven't seen before. So let's check this out, see if I understand what they're talking about, and probably I will end up agreeing with what they are saying. But let's see.
In the narrative is the reason, but the dominance in the narrative is the reason why so many people I think are against Israel. It's an easy punching bag. You see a Gazan child
That's really true. So even 9 seconds in, I can say something about this. So it's really easy to be a pro-Palestinian. All you have to do is, uh, say free Palestine, and that's it. And you don't have any like sort of intellectual discussions, or you don't um, really get into the facts of the situation. You just become a brainwashed robot, and you say all these random talking points which are not true, like saying it's a genocide, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to really think. But if you want to be pro-Israel, you have to do a little bit of research, think a little bit, and then come to your own conclusion that it's not a genocide and all the other talking points are also false, and support Israel at the same time, while in the same time realizing that uh, what's happening in Gaza is unfortunate, and you can recognize that it's pretty uh, bad, and it's a sad situation for the Palestinians that obviously hate Hamas and are against that sort of regime, and in the same time recognize the propaganda that they put out and say, you know what, I'm not gonna fall for that. I'm actually gonna support Israel. It takes way more sort of courage and intellectual ability, I'd say, to be on the pro-Israel side. And so that's why it's much harder, and a lot of people just go the easy route and become pro-Palestine because it's easy, and there's too much peer pressure, and so they just go that side without thinking about it at all. Anyway,
land on the ground, whether it's staged or not, because people tend to believe everything they see from Hamas as if they're not going to trick people in propaganda. But you see a kid, and then everybody goes out and say, "Oh, this weaponized empathy that they produce on the people." They go, "Oh, this innocent kid, they're just bombing indiscriminately." And what happens to the untrained mind to go deeper in the thinking through things? They go, "Wow, bad." They're bad. This person said they were bad. I don't want to do no research or think about it reasonably or logically.
exactly, exactly.
This video is brought to you by Synergy Life. Brought to you by Synergy Life, ladies and gentlemen. It get strong.
Community and the Zionist community. I want to ask you about this because, for us in like the Jewish community and the Zionist community that were connected to Israel before all this stuff, we all had this October 7th moment and this October 8th moment where we found ourselves in a world that felt very confusing and scary. Did you have any kind of moment like that post October 7th and October 8th moment for you where you felt like you saw a certain confusion or felt the need to speak out? Like what drove you to get into that space?
Well, I went to Israel probably like a month or two before that was my first experience being.
The scary part that he's talking about on October 8th is that before Israel even counterattacked or did anything against Hamas. By the way, they are targeting Hamas, they're not targeting Palestinians. There were already pro-Palestine protests against Israel and against Zionism, which just means you believe in the state of Israel, saying that Israel should exist. That's what it means. So, it was that's what he's saying, that it's sort of really concerning and scary when your country gets attacked, and then the response by the international community is to go against that country. It's really strange and also scary at the same time. That's so, yeah.
In Israel, had a really good time there, man. We
Mhm.
traveled all over Israel. I mean, all the way from the north to the south. Only place we didn't go is the Gaza Strip, and you
Mhm.
can imagine why. And so, but we went everywhere. The Dead Sea. We went in the Palestinian areas. We went, you know, because there's historical Christian places that are not in the Jewish portion
Mhm.
of Israel. And so we had a really good experience. It was very shocking to me that
Unfortunately, not a lot of Christians can go to Bethlehem, where I believe Jesus was born, because that's part of Palestine. And it's generally speaking pretty dangerous to try and go there, so not a lot of Christians can get that opportunity.
October the 7th happened. Now, I wasn't historically involved enough to know how volatile the situation was, but I was there. It didn't seem like it was such a big conflict. It seemed like a conflict had occurred.
Mhm.
But like when I was in Jerusalem, you have Muslims and you have Jewish people and you have tourists all existing together. You go to the market here, you go to the market there. On the Sabbath, you had the like the Muslim Palestinian people working at the hotels that we were
Mhm.
in or the places that we stayed. And then when you had their holiday, you had the Jewish people working there. There was no issues. There was no
Mhm.
conflict. And it seemed to be very safe and reasonable. And,
Yeah.
you know, there was no, I didn't take it as the Jews are against Palestinians and they secretly are putting them in positions for them not to be successful. It seemed like a place almost similar to America where they were extremely inviting of immigrants and inviting of people who are different to come, and everybody was existing in peace. If you
Mhm.
want peace, you were there and existing in peace. So then when October the 7th happened, it was crazy. I was like, oh my God, dude, I was just there. I had no idea that this was something that was brewing from Gaza, and it really bothered me, man. Like a lot of people, I guess, they hang on to what's happening in Gaza. I'm still stuck on what happened in Israel. Like
Mhm.
I saw some of the video footage. I was there in the kibbutz and kind of touring the area, and to think that there were people who flew over and mowed down innocent people at a going at a concert, beheading people. I'm still upset about that.
Mhm.
And the fact that those people then took people hostage, they were celebrating and cheering. You had the infamous videos of the girl who was bleeding because they
Mhm.
had assaulted her.
Mhm.
They were beating them on the way into Gaza. Like, I'm still bothered by that. And
Mhm.
I think that that was the crux of what happened. And that's why I support Israel in this entire thing. And I have been an advocate ever since because I don't feel the same way some people feel about Gaza, and it's just such an innocent people. Like, yeah, there's some people that are innocent in that situation, but when you're fighting a war, you got to do what you got to do. And if that happened in America,
Mm.
we would be doing the same thing or worse,
I
in my
think so.
personal opinion.
Yeah, and
That's a really good point. If it happened in America, they would react the exact same way, and you wouldn't be seeing all these pro-Palestine or pro-terrorist protests in college campuses. It just wouldn't be happening, I don't think. Like 95, 99% of Americans would support America in that situation if there was a terrorist attack like 9/11, for example, and they would go and get the terrorists, and they would probably go even harder than Israel. That's really true.
I think I think that there is this confusion that's developed when you look at the optics of war, any war, just or unjust. If you spotlight it and feature it in a certain way, people have become confused between the tragedy of war and the depravity of those who started it. I just think there's such a difference when you look at October 7th, as you saw. Like, I'm also, everyone, the weird thing about this debate is that both sides think it's so obvious, right? Who the good guys are. Both sides are like, it's so obvious. But one side looks at the tragedy and the optics of war and attributes malice and evil to it. And I think what you're talking about is, I saw things I can't unsee and that have a very different motivation. And it's interesting that you brought up what it was like before October 7th. And I always is struck by that when you go to Israel and you see all the signs are in Hebrew, Arabic, and English, and you see this multicultural society. where it doesn't seem like there are these people at war constantly. I think that's the first thing that would strike anybody going to Israel for the first time. So that's
I
I
think
even
it's
feel that myself when I go, and I've been there many times. I'm like, it's unbelievable how people get this wrong. My question to you is, when you get into these spaces, like messaging wise, why do you think that narrative doesn't come through? Your experience in Israel, when you get into these spaces, and now we're seeing sort of the younger people that you're coming up against and sort of the MAGA movement seemingly turning, especially a side that's supposed to be pro-Western, pro-military, pro-capitalism, pro-success, pro-competence. Why are they turning? What messaging you think is falling flat on like younger generations that you come up against on college campuses, left and right?
Yeah, man, I think that some of this is spiritual, to be quite honest. And I think that when people talk about anti-Semitism, it has become similar to racism. It's not that it don't exist. It's just some people weaponize it and overuse it, and then people begin to doubt the mere definition. But I think there's a real spiritual anti-Semitism that befalls the people. And some people, and I call them getting bit by the anti-Semite bug, because there's this longing to have such a negative perception of Israel without true justification. I mean, I see certain people who they see everything in the world negative attributing to Israel. And if Israel does anything similar to what we would do in America or any other government, whether it's a fault or not, it's exacerbated because it's Israel for some odd reason that I do not, and I probably will never understand. But the dominance in the narrative is the reason why so many people, I think, are against Israel. It's an easy punching bag. You see a Gazan child that's laying on the ground, whether it's staged or not, because people tend to believe everything they see from Hamas as if they're not going to trick people in propaganda. But you see a kid, and then everybody goes out and say, "Oh, this weaponized empathy that they produce on the people." They go, "Oh, this innocent kid, they're just bombing indiscriminately." And what happens to the untrained mind to go deeper in the thinking through things, they go, "Wow, bad. They're bad. This person said they were bad. I don't want to do no research or think about it reasonably or logically."
It's very
And
simple-minded.
unfortunately, people do not research, and people have implicit biases. And when you have people who have a great amount of influence and they have trust from people that follow them because they've been 100% correct on probably 90% of the things that they've said, they kind of by default get a level of trust that sometimes they don't deserve because they're not validating these things by facts. And I hate to see it happening, man. It's almost like I need to do more to get people from Israel to come on my platform and speak. And let me just say this too, because I think this is important to say. A lot of people who represent Israel are terrible representations of Israel, right? They come out and they say they're not reading the room, they're arguing. I don't know how you feel about Shmuley. I don't even like to call him a rabbi. He's one of the ones I just do not like. But he comes across very pompous and arrogant, and he has all his baggage, and he's not a good representation.
He's Michael's
And
father.
so,
No, I'm just kidding. Look at the resemblance. Officer Tatum is an anti-Semite. Officer Tatum is an anti-Semite. You're an anti-Semite. I mean, we have a lot of fun on the Shmuley thing, but absolutely, I'm
No,
with you.
I know,
that's a
but
great call.
he
We're
he
with you.
goes out and does these extreme things, and it kind of makes fun of even the very point that he's trying to make about defending Israel.
Yep.
But I've had a couple people that have come on my platform that have done an incredible job at explaining common sense. This stuff is common sense.
That's pretty true. I think we need more people like Douglas Murray and Masab Hassan Yusuf and more aggressive people or more passionate people like that who really understand the pro-Israel side and can advocate it in a pretty coherent and really strong way so that people understand where we're coming from a more uh, genuine perspective so that they can actually change their mind about it rather than someone like Rabbi Shmuley who, you know, he gets the talking points correct, not the talking points, but he gets the uh, pro-Israel perspective correct, but he presents it in a way that's really ridiculous and just makes our side look bad. So I agree with what he's saying there. Um, so we need people more like Brandon over here to actually advocate for Israel. And yeah, more people like that on shows like Piers Morgan, who seems to be really popular. Um, I mean, it happened recently where they got a pro-Israel guy and some lunatic who's pro-Palestine, and it was just a shouting match again. And I feel like we need people that are more um, precise but also aggressive with their speech, um, so that it's appealing to the pro-Palestine side in a way where they'll actually come out from that interview or that video and actually think about their own perspectives and their own moral compass, and then possibly change their mind after watching that video or interview, whatever. So yeah, I agree.
Man. That's why I think it's spiritual, because for somebody to not be able to see common sense in this situation, it's got to be more than just logic. It's got to be more than just ignorance. It's more to it.
Yeah.
This war is very simple. You get attacked, you retaliate against a terrorist organization that have been screwing over their people for I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
The freedom is not from Israel. The freedom is from Hamas, to be quite honest.
Right.
And this is the way war is fought.
Yeah.
These people are going to put their own citizens in harm's way in order to gain sympathy when they are the ones who are launching rockets into Israel. And if it wasn't for the Iron Dome, there'd be hundreds of thousands of Jews killed. I mean, it's very simple to me. I can go on forever about it, but it's just that some of these people who are leaders in the community, who have a big platform and a voice, they can go down a rabbit hole, and it's very convincing to some people.
There's this weird sentiment that people have where if AIPAC disappeared, somehow their life would get better. Like, it's crazy. It's really crazy. Like their material life would improve without AIPAC. Like, you can see the pathology there.
And people don't want to do any research and be logical. Like, I don't have a vested interest in Israel or anything like that. I'm just a logical person. I went, I had an experience, and I know to not believe the first thing you hear. So when people talk about AIPAC, it's like, okay, let me do some research on AIPAC. Let me see what the origin of AIPAC is. Let me see what the downfalls, the good and the bad of AIPAC. AIPAC should not be registered, because they're not lobbying on behalf of a foreign government. Do they lobby on behalf, or are they lobby for Israel because there's people that care about Israel, like me and other people? Yeah. And people may have a problem with that, which is fine. You can critique it, but you can't go so far to say that they should be registered as a foreign agency. It's two different things. You can say, I don't like the fact that people like Israel this much. I don't like the fact that American people in this country have a vested interest in Zionism or want Israel to exist, and they believe that's something they're passionate enough to put their money behind. Just say you don't like that. Don't try to make AIPAC into something that is not. Go ahead.
Yeah. I wish there were more not Jewish people going on Piers Morgan making the case, because I think it's so much stronger. Like, I mean, hearing you say it when Elika Laban goes on and talks about it. It really does clarify something about it.
Yeah.
Because I think that when you're a rational, reasonable person and you don't have a vested interest, because I think some people say, oh yeah, this person is Jewish, of course they're going to say this. But when you have a person that's like, there's not much connection to Israel that I have, other than I went there and other than my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was there, and
Jesus was Palestinian, Brandon.
Right.
Jesus is Palestinian. He was a Palestinian Christian. He wasn't Jewish.
Exactly. Yeah, he's a Palestinian Christian, and he read the Bible too when he was alive. And so, so it just, I think that more voices need to step up. But you know what the problem is? People are afraid.
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a F about what people think about me, generally speaking. I build my own company. You can't really cancel me unless I want to quit my own job. You're not going to fire me, and you're not going to intimidate me, because I am who I am. And I've gotten backlash. People call me Talmud Tatum. And they call me Talmud Tatumstein. Because I love Jewish people.
That's a very nice name. That's a very nice name. I like that. Talmud Tatumstein.
I almost made a shirt. I was going to make a shirt, Talmud Tatumstein.
Well,
I got a friend that literally, he sends me AI renditions of Talmud Tatum. Like, it's just me with a down.
That's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
I actually want to ask you about the pushback, because first of all, I just point out that the point that you're making is like this disproportionate outrage, brain rot, obsession with I'm not just under the guise of, I just have a problem with foreign aid. Yeah, right. That's why you're losing your shit about AIPAC calling it a foreign agent. That proves our point, not yours. That's the funny thing. You are proving that you're obsessed and that there really is this disproportionate obsession with what Israel is doing. And that proves your anti-Semitism, not my suspicion of it. But the pushback that you're getting, I want to ask about that because, they talk about how, the notion of the black conservative gets a lot of pushback from one side saying you're not only we disagree with you, but you're a traitor, you're siding with these people. But not only that, to be outspoken about Israel and being supportive of the Jewish community. Can you talk to me a little bit about that specific pushback? Do you see pushback within the black community itself? I want to and couch that in with this idea of like, there's been this rise of seeming tension between the Jewish and the black community, thinking about Kyrie Irving, Kanye West, that flame stoked by Candace Owens and others, where I don't know, coming from our insular community, I don't get an opportunity to sort of get insight into what that looks like. Can you talk a little bit about that? If you've seen pushback, have you been able to like clarify for people or steer people in a better direction? In your
Yeah, I don't
position?
feel it as much because I really just don't care. But I don't see it coming from the black community as much. Because, like, for instance, when I talk about black issues like police brutality and things like that, and I clarify that cops weren't wrong when they did this and that, I get a lot of pushback from black people primarily.
Right.
With this situation, I get a lot of pushback from MAGA people, a lot of pushback from America First people that say they're America First. And, but the bottom line is because they've heard things said by people that they trust, but they haven't done any research on it. Like the Ashkenazi Jews, like the whole concept that they have no connection to the bloodline of Abraham. It took me, I don't know, 30 minutes to do some research on that to realize that there's DNA peer review tests that show that Ashkenazi Jews do have a trace bloodline to Abraham. So for somebody to say that without acknowledging peer review research, that person is being completely disingenuous. But when you hear it and you believe a person, you begin to embody it. But I don't have a lot of it's the same thing about some of the things I believe about Christianity. It's always going to be pushback because people are not willing to dive deeper and become uncomfortable with their own belief systems. If you believe this about Jesus, some people don't want to hear that there's an alternative viewpoint or there's a theological debate or anything else like that. They feel like if I challenge my own beliefs, then I'm no longer who I am. And I don't believe that. Like, I'm okay with Israel being a bad guy, but I don't see any evidence of Israel being a bad guy. I don't see any evidence of, if a person can look at Palestinians in Gaza and say, well, these people are innocent, and I'm not for Hamas, I'm for the Palestinian people. Why can't they do the same thing with Israel? Why can't they say that the government is doing things that I disagree with, but I do love the people of Israel? They're innocent, reasonable people that just live in their life and believe in their religion, and they finally have a place where they can call home and be safe because of all the military advancements that they have in our support. But why can't they get the same love and support impartially as all these other people? So, but go back to your point about backlash and stuff. I mean, I don't buy into it, man, because I've learned over time is that you just got to tell the truth, and the people that want to hear the truth will respond appropriately, and people that are just brainwashed or emotional about it, they won't never listen to you. And maybe they'll come back later and send you a message privately and say, yeah, man, thank you for telling the truth. But I get the same thing with police interactions. Like, I was a cop. I know the law. I know use of force policy. I know the use of force continuum. I used to have to do this every day of my life when I was a cop. And so I know things that the general public don't know and understand.
And that's why I really enjoy the Officer Tatum and his content, because he doesn't just go with the mainstream narrative or his conservative or MAGA friends are telling him you have to be pro-Palestine, or the American First people telling him that it's bad to support Israel, you have to defund Israel. They're telling him all these things, and he's saying, no, actually, I have my own opinions, and I use common sense, logic, and critical thinking to come up with my own opinion, and so therefore he supports Israel. And we, the Jewish and pro-Israel community, really appreciate people like him because of that reason. And so, you know, I also like his other opinions about politics because I do lean conservative, but I'm the same way. I don't necessarily agree with everything that Brandon says, and even though most of it I do agree with, and but that's based on my own opinions, based on me doing research and figuring out for myself, okay, do I agree with this opinion on this particular topic or do I not? So I look into it and I say yes or no, and then, or am I somewhere in the middle? Um, and then, yeah. So that's why I think that kind of thing, common sense, logic, reasoning, and critical thinking should be taught at school. Like a separate classroom, a separate subject just for things like that, where you teach children how to critically think. I think that's really important. But anyway, that's pretty much it. I agree with what they were saying about Israel. Pretty, some of it was really deep as well when he was saying there's a spiritual problem because I was having an argument on X, aka Twitter, with a neo-Nazi, which is probably stupid because there's no way you can change someone's mind. A person that loves Hitler and things like that. I was sort of going back and forth with him, and it just became really obvious to me that uh, that individual has a really dark spirit about them, where they hate Jews and they wish that Hitler won the war and things like that. It's just you can't do anything about that eventually. You get to a point where um, you ask them, why do you hate Jews? And they tell you it's because of so and so, but they can't say the specific reason. And then you get to a point where you just give up because there's just something wrong with them mentally. They have a mental illness or something like that. And you just move on with your life, and you can't really do much about it. Anyway, yeah, that was a pretty interesting discussion, and so yeah, that's it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.